Hello there and welcome to my guide for painting Captain Marvel from Marvel Zombies. As you can see, the very first thing we've done is sprayed them with matte white spray from Colourforge. As she's mostly wearing blue, I'll start with that, and for that I'm going to use some Craggy blue. And this is followed by a wash with some Drakenhof Nightshade. Once our wash had dried, we then relayered the Craggy blue just to brighten things up a little bit. This was then followed by the first highlight of a 50-50 mix of Craggy blue and Calgar blue. Then Calgar blue just by itself. And for the final highlight, it's a 50-50 mix of Calgar blue and some blue horror. Next I want to move on to the red, and for that I'm going to use some Fiston red. And this will be washed with some Carroburg crimson. Once that wash is dried, we're going to relayer the Mephiston red just to brighten things up a bit, and we're going to make sure we avoid those recesses. Then we'll start highlighting with a 50-50 mix of Mephiston red and Evil Sunz Scarlet, followed by Evil Sunz Scarlet just by itself, and then a final highlight with a 50-50 mix of Evil Sunz Scarlet and Wild Rider red. Now I'm going to move on to the gold, and for that I'm going to use Retributor Armor. This is for that little badge on her belt and also the gold line around her chest. She does have lines coming down from that gold area, so be very careful when you pick those out. Next I'm going to paint the skin on the hero version of Captain Marvel with some Cadian flesh tone, while the zombie version will get a coat of Rakarth flesh. After that, both gold and flesh sections will get washed with some Reikland flesh shade. Once that wash is dried, we'll relayer the Retributor armor with Retributor armor, making sure we avoid the recesses. This will be followed by a 50-50 mix of Retributor armor and Uruk armor gold. Then Uruk armor gold for the final highlight. I'll then relayer her flesh with some Cadian flesh tone, followed by a 50-50 mix of Cadian flesh tone and Kislev flesh for the highlight. Next I'll use some matte white for her eyes. Then I'll use a tiny bit of Wazdecker red just to paint in her lipstick. For the zombie version, I'm going to use some Flayed One flesh for the first highlight, followed by a little bit of Carroburg crimson just to sort of sink in the eyes and make the eyes look a little bit darker. After that, I'll do the final highlight on the skin with some Pallid Witch flesh. For the Skrull head that she's holding, I'm going to use Nagaroth Knight to paint the cowl. This will be followed by a 50-50 mix of Nagaroth Knight and Xerxes Purple, with a final highlight of Xerxes Purple on its own. For his skin colour, I'm going to use some Elysian Green, which I'll wash with some Athonian Camo shade. While that wash dries, I'm going to paint in her hair with some Xandri Dust. And I'll wash the hair with some Army Painter Soft Tone. I'll then use Elysian Green to relayer the skin on the Skrull, followed by a 50-50 mix of Elysian Green and Nurgling Green for the highlight. I'll paint his spine with some Morghast Bone. And I'm going to dry brush her hair with a 50-50 mix of Xandri Dust and Ushabti Bone. For the zombie Marvel, I will mark in her teeth with some matte white. And now it's finally on to the bases, so I'm going to paint the muddy area on zombie Marvel's base with some Dryad Bark. And then I'll use Dawnstone to paint the rocks on that base, along with the entire base of Hero Marvel. I'll then use Grey Seer to dry brush the rocks as well as the base that Hero Marvel is standing on. I'll then use some matte white to dry brush a little bit extra on the smoky areas on the Hero version's base. I'll paint the rims with Abaddon Black, and then I'll wash the base for the zombie version with some watered down Agrax Earthshade, along with the bits that are sticking out on the hero version. And for the smoke, I'm going to use some Nuln Oil just to make it a little bit more smoky. This next bit you can completely skip if you want, but I'm just going to add a little bit of blood for the blood god around the zombie Marvel's mouth and along the stump of the Skrull's head. And with that, that's both Captain Marvels finished. Really enjoyable models to paint, if not a little bit fiddly with the some of the detail on the boots. However, if you take time and go nice and slow, everything will be perfectly fine. Overall, these guys only took around about 4 hours to paint for the pair, and they are quite enjoyable to paint. If you followed this guide and you found it useful, think about giving the video a thumbs up and a share. I really do appreciate it, and I really hope that this helped. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you on the next one. Goodbye for now.